Erdogan did not kick out the Israeli ambassador.
Just
The
recalled
Israeli
it.
ambassador
Yeah.
left on their own.
Yeah.
Erdogan recalled the Turkish ambassador because it looked humiliating that the Israelis had withdrawn ambassador because of Turkish public anger, but Turkey had left its ambassador there. The point I'm making is Erdogan is playing keep up or catch up with the Turkish public opinion. The harder Turkish public opinion is, because remember, Turkey is a country that is more free than the other Muslim countries. The Turkish people have the power to oust their leader in a way the Arab populations don't. Erdogan knows he will have to face an election, and he knows that those who carry him to power are the Muslim Islamic movements that will never forgive him if he does not stand with Palestine. They might forgive him for other things. They might forgive him on issues related to Syria or that, but they will never forgive him for Palestine. And that's why Erdogan believes that he's trying to navigate this very thin line on a tightrope. How to appease the Turkish population while not offending the Israelis. And I think he's found comfort in that, given there is a consensus Netanyahu should go, I can talk about Netanyahu, but not the Israelis, and then I can restore those ties with the Israelis. The point that I want to make here is, going back to your question, is that Erdogan is clearly buckling under public opinion. That public opinion is happening because of the ordinary Muslim. It's because the ordinary Muslims are sharing on social media, because they're taking to the streets, they're taking on the protest. They are forcing Erdogan into a change. Now, because Erdogan has forced into a change, this is why Blinken went to Turkey. Blinken is concerned that Erdogan is hesitating. You are asking what impact does it have, what tangible impact? Blinken is concerned that public opinion is forcing an ally in Turkey who wants to have good ties with Israel to reconsider those ties, to go on a tightrope. In other words, Blinken is going because he believes that that public opinion has started a chain reaction that has the potential to create a scenario in which Erdogan goes all the way. Blinken went to Ankara because he's concerned that Erdogan is being squeezed into a corner where he will have to decide between Turkish public opinion and standing with Gaza, and between ties with Israel and warmer rapprochement with the Americans. And Blinken is concerned, this is the point I want to make, that Erdogan is closer to aligning with public opinion in Gaza than he is about resisting public opinion and standing with the Israelis. So you ask, what is the tangible impact of the public opinion, the diplomatic measures and the statements? The statements are causing concern in Washington because Washington believes, unlike the ordinary person listening to this video, Washington believes that Erdogan has shown before that when he's forced into a corner, he acts. They're worried that Erdogan will act. The same applies to Jordan. We'll move it from country to country. Same applies to Jordan. King Abdullah has been a vital vehicle through which to uphold Israel's security, not because he wants to, but because he lacks the power to do anything else. Jordan is heavily reliant on Gulf money to keep the economy going, and when King Abdullah of Jordan has tried to act independently in the past, we saw Saudi Arabia and the UAE try to orchestrate a coup last year through one of his half-brothers, and the half-brother was eventually detained and the like, and it was a big scandal. And then eventually there was a reconciliation. The Jordanians arrested Saudi's man in Jordan as well, clearly indicating they believe the Saudis were trying to topple him. King Abdullah in Jordan has been under heavy pressure from the Saudi Crown Prince to hand over custodianship of the Al-Aqsa Mosque to Mohammed bin Salman, so that bin Salman becomes in charge of the three Haramain. And according to diplomats that I've spoken to in closed rooms, the Israelis are convinced. I'm not saying the Saudis said it. I'm not saying that Saudi has promised this. The Israelis are convinced that Saudi normalization will result in bin Salman handing over the territories of Al-Aqsa to the Israelis as part of improving those ties. Whether that's true or not is irrelevant. The Israelis are convinced about that. Jordan has been under heavy pressure. The Jordanians have been trying to maintain the status quo, keep the peace with Israel and keep the peace with the Americans. So imagine you're an American sitting in the White House, an advisor to Blinken, and King Abdullah of Jordan, who you know is willing to play the role of helping to protect Israel's security because he doesn't have power to do anything else, is suddenly talking about declaration of war, is suddenly withdrawing his ambassador. There are protests now taking place in Jordan, and he decides to go to the convention in the meeting in Cairo, and he gives a speech in English where he lambasts the Americans, where he says that you guys consider your lives more expensive than ours, that you're making our lives as cheap and you will pay the price for generations to come. Blinken's reaction is to go to the region to meet with King Abdullah of Jordan. The reason Blinken gets on a plane to go to King Abdullah of Jordan is not because he's at ease with King Abdullah of Jordan. If he was, he would have stayed in the White House. He goes to King Abdullah of Jordan because he's concerned that King Abdullah is under heavy pressure from public opinion, from the ordinary Muslim watching this video who is tweeting and retweeting and sharing and protesting and the like. Blinken is worried that that public opinion is becoming so heavy that King Abdullah of Jordan, when he's forced to decide, should I protect US interests or go on public opinion, Blinken is concerned that he will side with public opinion. Even if he doesn't, it's irrelevant. Politics is all about perceptions and the science of possibilities. Blinken is concerned that there's a scenario that exists where King Abdullah of Jordan will side with public opinion, and that necessitates a visit to go to Amman to talk to King Abdullah of Jordan. And King Abdullah of Jordan cancelled the Quad meeting between the Palestinians, the Egyptians, and the Americans. He said, I'm not having any of it. Something that upset the Americans. And that's an example of where the tangible process lies, because one of the reasons that Blinken went from a ceasefire, from no ceasefire to humanitarian pause, is because he's concerned that public opinion is forcing the regional policymakers to alter their stance. Take Sisi, for example, and forgive me for going on about this, but we'll take it country by country. Please. Sisi, for example. Sisi has banned protests in Egypt since he took power in 2013.
Yeah.
Sisi is concerned that the Israeli plan is to push the Palestinians out of Gaza into the Sinai Peninsula. Sisi knows, as a matter of fact, that if this happens, he will go down in history as the greatest traitor to the Ummah that ever lived, as somebody who helped to facilitate that Nakba. Sisi is under heavy pressure. The Americans came to him and said to him, we will give you debt relief if you take them in. On the 20th of October, Biden proposed a funding bill to Congress. Part of that funding bill says that we want to designate millions of funds for neighboring countries to help them with displaced Palestinians. It was Biden saying, I want Congress to provide funds for ethnic cleansing. Financial Times reported that the Egyptian foreign minister responded privately to a meeting of diplomats that wallahi, if these Palestinians are sent into Sinai Peninsula, we will put all of them on boats and send them to the Europeans, and you guys can deal with your human rights or the like. On the 28th of October, so before 28th, Blinken goes to visit Sisi in Cairo. Sisi is under so much pressure that he decides to leave the cameras on. He seats Blinken on the side and he proceeds to give a 40-minute lecture to Blinken to tell him, when you came to Tel Aviv, you said you came as a Jew. When have we ever persecuted the Jews in this region? And he proceeds to surprise the Americans and lambast Blinken, indicating the extent to which Sisi is livid with the Americans, not because he's upset about the Palestinians, but upset that they're threatening to throw him under the bus by forcing him to take in those refugees. As a result of the stance of the Egyptians, of Sisi, on the 28th of October, Biden tweets and says, I spoke in a phone call with Sisi, and we have agreed that no Palestinian should be displaced outside of Gaza. I thought that Biden might be lying, because Biden has said that he saw the pictures of the 40 beheaded babies, and the White House said that he never saw it. It was Netanyahu who told him. Then John Kirby came out the next day and said, yes, there will be no displacement of Palestinians outside of Gaza. You asked about the tangible shifts. The reason that they shifted from displacing the Gazans outside of Gaza, even though some people say they're being displaced from northern Gaza to southern Gaza. But the point is this, that shift in US policy is as a result of the shifting policy of the regional allies, as a result of the public opinion and public anger that is being expressed on the streets. And that's why when Blinken went to Tel Aviv, according to Axios and CNN, Blinken said to Netanyahu, we need a humanitarian pause. Netanyahu said to Blinken, I think this is a nasty ploy from Biden to force me into a ceasefire. Blinken replied and says, according to Axios, help us to help you. We are suffering under that public opinion. If it continues this way, our position of preventing a ceasefire will become untenable. We need this humanitarian pause to help you with the ethnic cleansing. We need the humanitarian pause so we can market our support for you as humanitarian. The question is this, and I'll finish on this because we might go into some other stuff in detail. The point here is this. The shift in the stance of the regional allies and the statements forced a shift in the stance of the US and the statements of the US. We're not in the clear yet in terms of calling for a ceasefire, but the shift is undeniable. And that shift shows that there are tangible changes taking place as a result of the shifting stance of the regional allies, and those shifting stances are as a result of public opinion, which makes you wonder that if the leaders took it upon themselves to act instead of waiting for public opinion, what the possibilities could be.
That's a very thorough answer, Sami. There is a view that when Muslim governments are weak, they don't have the ability to move at this moment in time. And if they do, they'll become another pariah state, a North Korea or a Saddam Hussein Iraq. The argument suggests that some of these leaders, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Turkey or Jordan, are biding their time. Does that idea that they're developing